The following is from our YouTube video, Fraudulent Evolution Theory is Taught as Fact, Debate on University Campus Number 1, with Dr. Michael Gerard from the Institute for Creation Research.
Sounds like you got ready to answer my question, but how would you explain the physical evidence found all over the world for the various forms of ancient man?
Various forms of ancient man. I'll just go through them. Most people have been taught that Neanderthal man is a fossil ape man. It's interesting that that evidence was based upon the man who originally looked at Neanderthal man back in the 1850s was Rudolf Virchow, father of modern pathology. Virchow looked at these bones and he said, okay, you've got somebody that has a big skull, thick jaw, he's got a hunched over back, and he's got bent legs. His upper leg bones were curved. He said, but if you look at it, it appears to be a man that has arthritis, accounting for the bent in his vertebra, and the leg bones are curved primarily because of vitamin D deficiency. That's what Virchow thought. Well, when Marceline Boole, the French evolutionist, got hold of these Neanderthal skeletons, or got hold of one of them, he reconstructed it, tilting the pelvis and rotating the toes to make it look ape-like. That stayed with that explanation for a long time, and because of that particular bend of the pelvis and prehensile toe in the ape, it looked like, for a fact, that Neanderthal man could be halfway between a man and an ape. However, as more scientists began studying this in the 1950s and the 1970s, Cave and Strauss, doing work independently at two different hospital universities, were able to show that the reason why Neanderthal man's legs were curved was just what Virchow had said, because of vitamin D deficiency, no ape. They were also able to show, Ivanhoe was able to show, looking at all the skeletons, that they suffered from arthritis. What doesn't make it in the textbooks is that in 1909, a Neanderthal skeleton was found buried in chainmail armor in Poland and dated to about the 14th century. Living Neanderthal people, the Taotao people of the Philippines, fit a classical description of Neanderthal man as far as their skeletal features are shown, and they're just people. And finally, in September 11, 1989 edition of Insight magazine, Dr. C. Loring Brace from the University of Michigan, who's investigated over 2,000 different bone specimens, came to the conclusion, quote, Neanderthal man is modern Western European. So what we've been calling an ape man, according to C. Loring Brace, who is an evolutionist, is just modern man, modern Western European. The Neanderthal man just fails to fit the criteria of a fossil ape man. With regard to Cro-Magnon man or Cro-Magnon man, the only reason why we would think that Cro-Magnon man was not a true man is because of the way we show him depicted in museums. Let me say this about the fossils we find in museums. Do you know we never find a birth certificate buried with a fossil? That we really don't know how old those fossils are? We never find a picture ID, so that we really don't know how they looked. When we see pictures in the museums of Cro-Magnon man with big hairy chest, loincloth, bad need of a shave and a haircut, we're looking at what some artist believes that Cro-Magnon man looked like. However, we know that Cro-Magnon man in his skeletal features was very tall. From bony features, it appears that he was heavily muscled. He had a high degree of social order from some of the things that he left us to look at. He kept a lunar calendar. And when he drew pictures of himself, like at the cave at Lascaux-les-Châteaux in France, he showed himself wearing top hat with a neatly trimmed beard. The women were wearing pantsuits and carrying purses. And Marceline Boole made note of that, even though he was an evolutionist all the way back in the 1870s. He said, gee, if we look at Cro-Magnon man and his cave art at Lascaux-les-Châteaux, he was a better artist than our modern, at his time, our modern French Impressionist painters. So that Cro-Magnon man fails every test to be a fossil ape man. I guess the most popular fossil ape man is Donald Johansson's find, Lucy. Discovered back in the 1970s. In 72, Donald Johansson found a knee joint, okay? And that knee joint had an angle, had a 15-degree angle. And Johansson said that because apes never have an angulated knee joint, that this obviously was from a human. But a year later, he found a skeleton, about a 40% complete skeleton, and that skeleton looked what only one could say is ape-like. So he matched the knee joint with the skeleton, and he went around the world and said, I found an ape man. Knee joint is angulated just like an ape. Skeleton looks angulated just like a human. Apes don't have angles, and the skeleton looks exactly like a man. Finally, at the University of Missouri in 1987, somebody asked a question. He said, Dr. Johansen, you found that knee joint a year before you found the skeleton. Now, let me ask you a question. How close to the skeleton did you find the knee joint? And Johansen wouldn't answer him. He said, no, I want an answer on that. How close to the skeleton did you find the knee joint? He found the knee joint 300 feet lower in the ground and 1.5 miles further away. Well, that's a tall ape. That doesn't sound like those bones fit together. Let me give you some background information also on angulated knee joints. Did you know that there are several groups of apes that also have angulated knee joints equal to the human angle of 9 degrees? Now, Lucy had an angle of 15 degrees. That doesn't match with a human angle. Also, Dr. Adrian Zillman in 1981, New Scientist magazine, demonstrated that Lucy's skeleton is virtually identical to a green forest pygmy chimpanzee. They don't give you research grant money, however, to find green forest pygmy chimpanzee, so Lucy falls out of the family tree. And we finally come to the point now where there isn't any good candidate for a fossil hominid for the ancestor of man. 1987, Zuckerman's work with multivariate computer analysis and measurements on the Australopithecines, various specimens, he came to the conclusion that the Australopithecine is distinct both from man and from the apes. He said Australopithecines is out there by itself and is definitely not on a human pathway. Those are the major proposed ape men that just don't hold up when we look at the evidence. And every time there's something proposed, it's pretty well shot down by the evolutionists themselves. And this is why Zuckerman comes to the, Oxnard comes to the conclusion that if man evolved from an ape-like creature, he did so without leaving a trace of that evidence in the fossil record. Any other questions?
So you do not believe in the process of evolution, is that correct?
Right.
How would you explain that during the early development of the human embryo, they have remnants of gill arches?
They don't have gill arches. What they have are pharyngeal folds. There are no such thing as gill arches. That's been so well documented that recapitulation is, they're not gill arches. They're called gill arches. They are pharyngeal pouches.
Which is exactly what marine life form had before they evolved from the tetrapods.
And again, they don't. Let me ask you this. Do the gill arches develop into any area of the lung? Do they develop into any area of the lung? No, absolutely not. Every creature, the pharyngeal pouches are there. The pharyngeal pouches are there because the vertebra that's present at that time is curved, and it's curved to such a degree that it bends what would be the head over. These out pouches fold over and just form pharyngeal pouches, and that's what they're correctly termed.
No, they're remnants of gills.
They are not remnants of gills. Recapitulation, that nonsense of recapitulation is even out of the textbooks now. No reputable embryologist reads it. Get a standard text on embryology.
The word recapitulation is outdated because that is not correct, but the whole idea and theory behind it is not outdated.
The theory has been rejected.
No, I've just had an evolution class where that was brought up.
They may have taught that to you, but I know of no reputable embryologist that would stand behind it. Okay?
I know of no reputable embryologist that would argue it.
And again, the theory of recapitulation, the fact that these are not pharyngeal gill pouches, let me give you a reference right offhand. He's not a Christian, he's not a creationist. Michael Denton's book, Evolution, a Theory in Crisis. Get a standard medical text on embryology. It denies that these things have anything whatsoever to do with lungs, respiratory mechanisms. In fact, each of the pharyngeal pouches differentiates into a different area.
Exactly, and that's what happened in marine forms as well.
If you like our YouTube channel, please subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button and then by also clicking the bell above to get an automatic update whenever we produce another YouTube video for our See Answers TV channel. Please share our videos with your friends and relatives. May God bless you. Only one life will soon be passed. Only what is done for Christ will last.